A wonder of the world is a term used to describe impressive human-made structures that are considered to be of great importance. Some of these wonders' true purpose are still debated to this day. It is difficult for us in modern years to fathom an ancient enemy that was so destructive and feared that we would ever spend centuries building a barrier just to keep them out.
There have been reports of strange creatures in the area.
Witnesses say they couldn't believe what they were seeing.
What is that? Welcome, beloved fofers, doubters, naysayers, non-believers, and skeptics. Welcome to Paranormal Fable or Fact. I am Victor Trevino, joined by my co-host and beautiful wife, Tammy.
We are your humble guides to tales of alleged hoaxes, unbelievable stories, and the overall strange.
Beautiful. Okay, our email, of course, is pfableorfact@proton.me. It's in the show notes. And just a tidbit from the last show that I wanted to go over. Two more things that from the People versus Sasquatch that I wanted to throw out there as evidence of Sasquatch not being regular flesh and blood creatures is the reports of people being able to turn them away or frighten them away by invoking the name of Jesus Christ or God.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. In other words, if there's a bull bearing down on you, ready to gore you, and you say, oh, in the name of Jesus Christ, I, command you to leave, the bull's just going to run you down.
Yeah.
Barring any kind of
Yeah.
actual divine intervention, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But with these Sasquatch, there have been reports, and of course completely ignored by those of the flesh and blood camp, there have been reports of people saying, oh, Jesus, please save me, and these things will completely leave them alone and leave the area, almost like they're being repelled by this evocation,
Yeah, that's interesting.
And then the other thing is this, or another argument against them being, I would say, paranormal creatures, is dumpster diving. People will say, well, if they're ancient creatures and they're supposed to be so intelligent, why are they digging in garbage cans for food like common vermin, right?
Yeah.
Well, my argument to that is if you take that dumpster and you put it somewhere remote, right, way out in the middle of nowhere, and you take a survivalist, like a Les Stroud, for example, Survivor Man.
Yeah.
That dumpster is going to become an absolute treasure trove for survival materials.
Right.
So do we really know that the Sasquatch are digging in the dumpsters for food, or are they going after survival materials? Because I don't think there's a Sasquatch researcher out there that's going to try to argue that Sasquatch aren't the ultimate survivalists. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's my answer to that. When they try to say that, that means it's just a dumb animal. No, I don't think so.
Oh, I gotcha.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There's intelligence behind it.
Yeah.
Because there's no evidence that that's what they're doing. There's no evidence that they're digging for food. They've just seen them around dumpsters.
Correct.
Digging in dumpsters and stuff. But who knows what they're looking for, you know? So let's move on beyond that.
Okay.
Of course, this is another show. This show is called Another Brick. And it's the Great Wall of China.
Right.
Is what we're doing the show on.
Right.
So there's not going to be any red flags. It's going to be more points of interest. And of course, there's not going to be any inarguable truths because nobody's disputing
That there's a wall.
right, that the wall exists, right. So it's mostly we're going to go into like legends and tales
Okay.
that have to do with the Great Wall.
Sounds good.
I think it's going to be very interesting. But before we get into the gist, and I think we're going to do this on every show from now on, we're going to go over the rules.
Okay.
Because we mentioned the rules in episode 1, and they weren't even very accurate.
Yeah, and we haven't really talked about them.
Yes, we've since changed them since.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
Rule number 1: we will never purposefully mislead or report false information. In other words, if you do cursory research behind one of our shows and you find out that we're just completely talking out of our butts, we don't know we didn't purposefully mislead you. We probably looked at old information and it has since been
right,
updated, and we just didn't catch it or
right.
what have you. It's not a purposeful attempt to mislead or try to
mischievous or anything like that.
Right. It's just an honest mistake.
We are not professional podcasters, broadcasters, or audio editors at all.
I don't think we have to comment on that.
No, we don't.
We display that one on a regular basis.
We say it on a regular basis.
Yeah, we say it all the time, because it's very evident. Rule number 3: everyone is entitled to believe what they want and entitled to their own opinions. That is including not only the fofers, but that includes us as well. We are entitled to our own opinions.
Yes.
If somehow our opinions or our beliefs wind up offending people, tough.
That's the beautiful thing about being a human being.
Opinions are like a-holes. Everybody's got one. You know what I'm saying? That's just basically. And again, I'm not gonna sit there and debate somebody. If you completely disagree with us, perfectly fine. That's your right.
Yes.
You know.
We are offering information and insight as food for thought, not persuasion.
Probably the biggest rule.
Yep.
That's probably because this is, and the reason we're going over these rules, and I think we're going to do it every podcast, is because primarily for new listeners or people that aren't familiar with our podcast. That's basically the backbone right there.
Yes.
Is we're not trying to persuade anyone. We're not trying to convince anyone of anything. All we're doing is pointing out information.
Yeah.
Giving you food for thought, giving the listeners stuff to mull over on their own time, and then they can come up with their own. And we don't say that at the other show. We don't say, well, what do you think? You come up with your own. We don't say that. So I wanted to go over the rules. That way people understand where we come from, where we're standing.
Right.
So let's get into the gist now.
Okay.
I had always thought for years that the Great Wall was just like a length of wall that traveled along the northern border of China.
Yeah, like a border. Yeah.
Between China and Mongolia.
Yeah, so did I.
It's not.
No, we watched that it's not.
It is not at all. It is like a spider web of walls.
That's a perfect way to say it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the thing is that some of the wall is in such remote areas that they didn't even realize it existed. Mm-hmm. And now they, with drones and aerial radar, the penetrating radar and stuff from the air, and aircraft and everything, they basically mapped out the wall. And we're going to go into how massive it is in the points of interest, but it's massive.
Yeah.
It is, and it is such an impressive. That's why in the intro it talks. I talked about what is a wonder of the world, and it's an achievement, an impressive achievement with human building or human ingenuity,
Yeah.
And this takes the cake, man. This is the largest man-made structure in human history.
Yeah.
Right here. Nothing even comes close.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing too.
And parts of it have lasted thousands of years.
That's yeah.
It was first built to keep out the Huns and then later the Mongol horde. And it was a series of walls that were built by different dynasties for thousands of years. The most famous one is probably the one everybody's familiar with, and that was built during the Ming Dynasty. And the reason that section of the wall is so famous is because that's where all the tourism is.
Right.
Because, again, there are areas of the wall that are completely inaccessible. I mean, barring like hardcore hiking or horseback,
Remember those steep steps and oh my gosh.
Oh yeah, because of some of the erosion and stuff, and they built it on cliffs and ridges. I mean, it's so remote and inaccessible. It's insane.
Yeah.
The oldest part of the wall was built around 770 BC between the spring and autumn periods. And that was, I believe, right before the Warring period, which is where you had all the different warlords and stuff fighting over to try to unite China under one banner.
Yeah.
You know, before there was an emperor. And there was just wars constantly, and that's why the wall was built, because each of these states, or what we would call states or territories, had their own rulers and nobles and you know, lords, and they built out the wall to protect their little area, their section of people and you know, farmlands and everything else. So, and the oldest wall is called the compact earth wall, because that's basically all it is. It's just compact earth.
Yeah, it's pretty
But it's
amazing.
such a feat of ingenuity, because it's just packed dirt, and it's lasted thousands of years.
Yeah.
Because when you see sections of it that have broke down, geologists look at it and archaeologists look at it, and they can see these reed mats that were placed. So basically, they dirt, then a reed mat, then dirt, then a reed mat, and they had to do that for thousands of miles.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Thousands of miles. The amount of dirt and earth moved is just incredible. And then if you look at it from an aerial view, the wall is like almost perfectly straight. The fact that they could do that that long ago is so impressive. It really is. It's just it deserves to be a wonder of the world, a modern wonder of the world. But during my research, I realized it wasn't built for just protection. That's what I thought it was. Yeah, I thought it was just to keep out the bad guys, but it wasn't. It was actually built also to establish borders, to regulate emigration and / immigration, and also it was used to regulate goods that were traveling on the Silk Road. And the Silk Road is that massive trade route that runs from Eastern Asia all the way across, you know, almost the entire continent. And that's the one that Marco Polo explored, the Silk Road. Right. So, you know, because it caused pinching points, because people didn't want to climb this wall, because it's, I think on average, it's like 26 feet high and like 16 and a half feet across.
Wow.
So it's massive. Yeah. You're not going to want to pull your carts and stuff over that, so you're going to have to go to these pinch points, and that allowed the lords to regulate what you're bringing through, you know, taxes and whatever. So let's move on to what would normally be the red flags, but these are just points of interest.
Okay.
Recent measurements of the entirety of the Great Wall is impressive, to say the least. You're looking at over 10,000 separate wall sections. You're looking at 1,764 ramparts or trenches, 29,510 individual buildings,
Wow.
and 2,200 fortifications or passes, with the walls and trenches spanning a total length of 21,196 kilometers, or 13,000 miles.
Wow.
Which, stretched out end to end, would reach half the diameter of the Earth.
Wow. That's
Which is
crazy.
just insane.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It is recognized as one of the most impressive feats of architecture in human history. Now, we already talked about that, but it is the largest man-made fortification ever.
Right.
It's just, you know, and a lot of people don't even realize how big it is.
Yeah.
And we watched that documentary on it, where you see the ramparts of the wall, like up on these sheer cliffs. How they got those materials up there,
right?
The bricks and the rocks, because most of the wall, and I thought this was just in the Ming Dynasty, the only section that's not built this way is, of course, the packed earth section, the oldest section. But most of the wall, they started off with rocks. They just piled up stone. And then what they did is they used mortar, which is, it's called sticky rice mortar.
Really?
Yeah, it was rice soup and slaked lime. And that's what they basically pasted the stones together, and then they covered it with brick. Most of the Ming Dynasty section is covered in brick, but a lot of the times they just covered it in tiles.
Wow.
So that it looks like one massive solid structure.
Rice soup. Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Wow.
And it's lasted hundreds of years.
You would think, because rice is like comes from the earth, you would think that would deteriorate.
Yeah, from like rain and stuff.
Yeah.
But I guess the lime
Yeah, maybe.
Or maybe that's why they had to cover it with brick. I don't know.
Maybe, I don't know.
Because I think the brickwork that they used, they didn't use the mortar, the rice mortar, sticky rice mortar. I think they used regular concrete. I believe. But they might have used sticky rice mortar. I don't know.
Wow.
But I know they used the sticky rice mortar for the rock section of it, you know, basically the base of it.
Right.
And then they covered it to make it look cool, you know, with bricks or tiles or whatever.
Okay.
And that's why it looks so awesome. And then they built the ramparts on top for archers and you know, forward observers and everything else.
Right.
And this is another interesting point that I didn't even know existed. There are over 200 secret passages through sections of the wall.
Wow.
Some of them are so small that only a single person could barely squeeze through there.
Ooh.
Other sections are so wide that you could fit an entire cart through there.
Wow.
And they're hidden by, you know, hidden doors and sliding stuff. And some of them were underground, you know, where you would have like a secret entrance.
Yeah.
Most of them are all buried now and damaged because, again, another point of interest is that most of the wall is in disrepair. Only a small section of it is kept in good condition, and that's the section where the tourists go.
Right.
The rest of it, who's going to there's no way you could maintain
the maintenance would be...
It's just astronomical.
Yeah, it would be so expensive.
But over 200 secret passages, because I always wondered, you know, what if you're like a guard on the wall, you know?
Yeah.
And you're like bebopping along doing your patrol or whatever, and your hat blows off. And you're like, holy crap, it's on the wrong side of the wall. You know what I'm saying? How are you going to get it? You're going to have to, you know, throw up a grappling hook or grab a ladder and try to...
Leave it there and get a new hat.
Yeah. Apparently you could take one of these secret passages, run over there, grab your hat, and get back on the wall.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Interesting.
Because I always wondered about that. Well, you know, if the enemy can't come through, well, that means you can't go through either. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah, they had secret passages. So, the Chinese name, which I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce, it basically means the 10,000-mile wall.
Wow.
So,
yeah.
pretty fitting, pretty accurate.
Yeah.
And, I mean, 13,000 miles.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah, it really is.
Or 21,000 kilometers for our European listeners, or Asia, you know, the Asia listeners as well. And again, when we made this point in the gist, much of the wall remains in areas that are extremely difficult to access. Most of them, like I said, most of the modern mapping that was done, I believe it was done in 2019. Most of the mapping that was done, they used drones. Because they couldn't even get horses up there. You can't even take climbing I mean, you'd have to be like professional mountain climbers to get to some of the areas.
Wow.
You're not going to just bebop up there and take a stroll. You know what I mean? They're like cliffs and, you know, these way out in the desert. Yeah. There's sections of it where you're driving along a highway for hours. And there's just remnants of the wall to your right. And that's it. Just sand as far as the eye can see. Because remember, the Gobi Desert's right there.
Right.
So it's just insane.
Yeah.
We made this point already. Most of the wall is in severe disrepair.
Right.
Growths, collapses. Sometimes, because if the earth shifts below it, like an earthquake or, you know, tectonic shifts or whatever, parts of the wall have crumbled, mostly in these very remote areas where nobody's around to even attempt to fix it.
And even trying to get like product to get up there and to fix it would be expensive.
That's one of the things, and that's the next point of interest, is there's absolutely zero chance of it being replicated today.
Yeah.
There's just no way. I mean, it took them thousands of years to build it.
Yeah.
And different dynasties.
Right.
It took them thousands of years to build it. Even if we made a worldwide attempt and probably pooled funds and brought in workers, just the shipping of materials,
how expensive,
the massive amount of workers, where you would get all of the tools and the equipment, and they could probably do
housing and food.
Oh God, it's astronomical. It'd be in the multiple trillions of dollars, and you wouldn't even get, could probably only complete, I say small sections, but probably like hundreds of miles of sections. You're talking 13,000 miles. There's no way
Yeah.
Not only could you not replicate it today, there's no way you could even maintain it today. Like if they wanted to refurbish it back to its original glory, there's no way.
Right.
You're talking, just that alone would be trillions of dollars.
I mean, in reality, because it took so many years to build it, like you just said, its original glory, it never had original glory because it took so many years to do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
By the time they got one section done,
The other section was
the other
already falling
section
apart.
was falling apart. Yeah.
Pretty much.
Crazy.
Or I think it was more the relevance.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Again, when you're getting back into the war, especially like the warring states, because only certain territories wanted to protect themselves.
Right.
You know, so
Yeah.
that's why I think the Ming Dynasty, because the Ming Dynasty was where most of China was conquered by the Mongols, by Genghis Khan. And the Ming Dynasty was the one where the Chinese armies actually pushed the Mongols out and established the border, the modern border, I believe, of China. And that's when they built the wall, the Ming section of the wall, to keep the Mongols out. So, but that's why it's the most famous, and that's why it's the most modern. But the Ming Dynasty lasted like 300 or 400 years or something, because that's what dynasties are. You know, the family, the Ming family that was in charge, that were the emperors and stuff, and it's very, very interesting.
Yes.
We already talked about the sticky rice mortar. That's the next point of interest.
Right. And we talked about the height and the width.
Oh, see, now that I'm looking at my notes, it says that they used rice mortar only in the Ming Dynasty section of the wall.
Oh,
so
okay.
I was wrong about that. Okay, so that's a correction. But just the Ming Dynasty section.
Yeah.
Again, most of I think it's like 89% of it is in complete disrepair. Only 9 or 10% of it is maintained, and that's for mostly the tourist section. But just the Ming Dynasty section alone is 8,850 kilometers or 5,500 miles.
Wow.
Section. So the Ming Dynasty they're the ones that really made. I mean, that's over a third of the wall that they made just in that one dynasty, which is just insane. And they're the ones that used the sticky rice mortar and the stones, like I was saying, and then they covered it with brick. So, then again, we talked about this. The wall is between 5 and 8 meters high, which is 16 to 26 feet high.
Right.
6 meters across, which is about 16 and a half feet, and then it narrows towards the top to about 5 meters, which is about 16 and a half. I'm sorry, 16 and a half feet is 5 meters. So basically, it's 6 meters at the bottom and then 5 meters at the top.
Oh, okay.
So it's like 20. It goes from like 20 feet at the bottom and narrows to the top of like 16 and a half feet.
All
so
right.
it's the flat top and everything. Because I mean, they could like move. You could move 16 and a half feet, baby. You could have a cart up there. You know what I mean? You could move catapults and all kinds of stuff on that when you have that much room.
Yeah.
So. And here's another interesting point of interest. It's not necessarily a good point of interest, but it's going to be the final point of interest. They estimate that upwards of 2 million people perished during the construction of the wall over a span of nearly 3,000 years.
Wow.
Which is insane.
Yeah, it is.
Just imagine the ghost stories.
Right. Yeah.
And unfortunately, like I said, most of the wall you can't even get to, so, who knows?
Yep.
I thought it was very fascinating, and this really rubbed me the wrong way because I'm a veteran, I served in the military. And I thought it was mostly slaves or workers,
That built it?
They were conscriptionists. They basically went around and said, oh, you look like an able-bodied man, get on the wall. And that was that.
Oh.
They'd come right into your home, the soldiers.
Oh, wow.
Huh, you look strong. Go. That was it. And you had to work on the wall. And there was a very slim chance as a conscriptionist, what they called them. They were slaves.
Yeah.
But you had almost no chance of coming home.
Right.
It was a life sentence. It was a death sentence.
Yeah.
You were gonna work on that wall until it was finished, which of course, if it took them hundreds of years to finish,
Yeah, never finished.
you're gonna die at the
Yeah.
wall. And that's what most of them did. I think probably if you managed to survive the brutal work environment, if you managed to survive and you got to a point to where you were too injured or too old, then maybe they would release you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But you're talking about thousands of miles of wall. So just imagine getting home. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You're 2,500 miles away from home, and they say, okay, you're released. Here you are, a 65-year-old man with a bad back, and you're like, oh, I can go home? Oh, thanks. They're not going to put you on a plane.
No.
You know, you're not going to jump on a train and go home. Really rubbed me the wrong way. And the other thing that rubbed me the wrong way is I didn't realize that almost every soldier in the military that was serving in the military under the emperor was also working on the wall.
Oh, interesting.
So imagine that. Yes, emperor, I give my life to you. Go work on the wall. Okay. And there you are with a pick. What is that crap?
Huh.
You're already risking your life for your country and sacrificing, and he's going to throw you on the wall and make you work? But that's how it was done. And that's what they had to do in order to complete it. I didn't know that. They estimate like up to 300 and something thousand troops were working on the wall at, different parts of the year, which is just insane. Think about that.
Yeah.
Can you imagine?
No.
What kind of military is that, man? You imagine if they did that in our military today? Holy crap. You'd have a riot on your
But it probably would work because then if they were being attacked, they're already military, so...
Yeah, but, I mean, if you're working on the wall for 12 hours a day, how good of a fighting condition are you going to be in?
That's true.
Because it wasn't like you had rifles.
Yeah.
You had to fight with spears and swords and stuff.
Yeah.
So I thought that was very interesting, that part of it. And I thought it was really crappy that they put the soldiers to work. But anyway, I don't want to go off on that. But anyway, let's
You kind of did.
Huh?
I said you kind of did.
Well, yeah, because that man, that's crap. Can you imagine? You leave your home to go serve in the military and they throw you on slave labor? What is that crap? So I think we're ready to move into the legends and myths of the Great Wall. This is the meat and potatoes.
Cool.
I think it's the most famous story because anytime you look up any kind of folklore or legends or myths surrounding the Great Wall of China, you're going to read about the story of Meng Zhuangnu. And this was a woman who basically she screamed and wailed and cried so horribly that she caused a section of the wall to collapse.
Oh, wow.
I don't know how much...
That's true.
Yeah, I don't know how much accuracy is in that because, I mean, who knows?
Yeah.
But basically the story is... She's sitting there living with her family. I don't think it was a noble family, but I think they were a very highly respected and not rich, but, decently wealthy, more well-off family, When here comes this guy that escaped the hard labor of working on the Great Wall.
Okay.
And his name was Fan Quiliang. We're just going to say Fan or Fan.
Yeah.
And Meng from now on. She's Meng, he's Fan.
Okay.
Because I'm...
Yeah.
So he escapes from this cruel, back-breaking camps of these work sites working on the Great Wall as a laborer. So, and her family took him in, fed him, nursed him back to health. Of course, he's a young man, she's a young woman. They start hanging out together, they're reading together, they're getting to know each other, and eventually, of course, they start to fall in love. So their blissful, happy marriage didn't last very long, apparently.
Aww.
Because just like I said, here come these troops. And even though he tried to hide, they found him and drug him right back to the wall. So there's Fan. He's back to work. He's back to slave labor. So she waited years for him to return. And finally, she was so upset that she went to the closest section of the wall she could, because who knows where he's at again. Baby, you're talking about hundreds of thousands of miles of length of wall with probably thousands of different work sites and work camps. So who knows where he is?
Right.
So apparently she went to the closest one closest to her home and talked to the workers there. And they said, if you're not waiting for him, you're wasting your time. He's never coming home, is basically what they told her. So she's very upset at this, but she doesn't take it lying down. She decides she's going to walk the span of this wall looking for Fan. So that's what she does. Wow. Very harsh trip. Again, some of the areas were remote and treacherous.
Yeah.
And Meng was like, no, I'm looking for my husband. I want to find him, and I want to try to save him.
Yeah.
So she spends basically months. And there's all kinds of different versions of the story. Like there's one story that she had been walking for so long that basically she had rags on her feet. And these village women saw her and took pity on her and made her new clothes and new shoes and stuff like this. And then she was really sick, and she was sitting by this river, and these children took pity on her and brought her medicine and helped nurse her back to health. Stuff like this.
Yeah.
But it basically, all the stories agree that she basically suffered horribly and suffered harshly looking for this guy, trying to find him, and spent basically years looking for him because it would take that long to go from camp to camp looking for him.
Yeah.
So she spends, it says she spends weeks combing through the different work sites looking for him, and finally
she found him.
She finds that he was killed because a section of the wall came down and buried him and other workers at the base of the wall. So, of course...
No fairy tale.
No. No happily ever after. So, again, she was so heartbroken that she fell to her knees at the base of the wall and cried and wailed in agony so horribly that the entire section of the wall just came down.
Wow.
Now, this was reported as a miracle because the wall was supposed to be impenetrable and it's supposed to be built by the best engineers.
Right.
And it lasted how long now? Yeah. Even the sections that are overgrown and in disrepair are still standing.
Still standing.
You know what I mean?
So her crying.
But just her crying supposedly caused this entire section to come tumbling down. So word of this feat traveled all the way to the emperor. And the emperor at the time was Qin Shi Huang, and he summoned her. But she was able to, before the soldiers came and got her to take her to the emperor, she was able to give Fawn a proper burial, which is...
That's good.
I guess that's kind of a good ending there, but anyway...
That's not a good ending. That's kind of a good ending.
Well, it's better than her never finding him. She at least got to bury him.
Jeez.
Oh, come on.
You are not good at fairy tales.
I like the grim, dark fairy tales, baby. Give me the misery.
It's a great ending. She buried him.
Give me the agony. Give me the anguish. I want the suffering, baby. Anyway. It's sad but true. Despite being known for his ruthlessness, Emperor Huang, after hearing her story, he was very moved by her devotion to try to find her husband. So he actually wrote an edict and passed it along the wall that workers were not supposed to be no longer treated so cruelly.
Wrote a what?
An edict, a law.
Oh, okay.
He basically passed a law that workers would not be treated as poorly as they had been.
Okay.
So, and after she returned home, and basically, it's a miracle that she reached home. I think the emperor sent her home.
Oh, probably.
He
most
took her
likely.
home with horses and carriage and everything and got her home because she was all still beat to crap from the trip,
Yeah.
So he sent her home, and I believe he rewarded her and gave her like money and stuff so that she could live a comfortable life, and she basically never remarried. And the legend is after her death, it is said that her ghost still lingers along the length of the wall, watching over the souls of all the laborers that died there, and also guiding any lost travelers in the area.
Oh,
Okay, the next legend is called the legend the legend of the White Snake and the Great Wall. Basically, there were two. I think they call them heavenly beings, but one was a white snake, and her sister, the green snake, and these beings became very powerful. So they decided, because they were so powerful, they were going to travel to the human world, the human plane, because I guess they existed on another plane. I think it's, like I said, I think it's called the heavenly plane. But anyway, they transformed themselves into beautiful young girls and travel to the human world. So apparently they're walking along, seeing the sights, enjoying, the company of humans or whatever. And they're walking by this section of the Great Wall. I believe it's called the Broken Bridge. And while traveling during that section, they ran into a young man named Shu Xuan. That's what his name is.
Okay.
From now on, he's Shu.
Okay, Shu.
Yes. So he apparently talks to them both, and they bid farewell, and they leave, and they figure out that White Snake has just fallen madly in love with him. So the green snake informed Shu of White Snake's love. and the two were married. And they were happy,
Yeah.
good to go.
Yeah.
Here comes this traveling monk called Fahai, who told Shu, hey, your wife isn't human. Well, of course, Shu's like, what do you mean she's not human? She's one of the most beautiful women I've ever seen. What are you talking about? So Fahai says, no, give her this potion. Somehow find her a way to have her drink this potion, and you'll see what I'm talking about. So Shu starts thinking about it, and he's thinking about it, So eventually he was able to trick her into drinking this potion mixed in with her wine one night, which of course transforms her into this massive white serpent, which scares the living crap out of him to a point to where he drops dead on the spot.
Oh, wow.
Shu goes, he's gone, dead.
Great, another fairy tale.
Yeah, another great ending, right? So the sad white snake decided at that point she was going to steal a magical herbal from the Heavenly Mountain to save her husband. She went up on this mountain and battled I guess they were guardians. One of them was called Deer Boy.
Okay.
I don't know. And the other one was White Crane Boy. And she was fighting them, and they were trying to stop her from stealing this herbal. So the tale is the old man of the South Pole gave the white snake the herbal out of sympathy. So basically told the two guardians, hey,
Yeah.
She's got a sad story. I heard it. I think we should give her the herbal. And apparently Deer Boy and White Crane Boy said, all right, cool. So she managed to revive Shu. But before she could enjoy his company, here comes Fahai again. Fahai the monk again.
Yeah.
This dastardly monk, this
Yeah.
jerk-off
Yeah.
monk,
This monk.
steals him away.
Oh,
Steals
wow.
away Shu, yeah. And took him to this temple and refused to allow Whitesnake to see him. So, now when I thought about temple, I was thinking like, well, it's just a building. Why don't you just go get him? No, a temple, it's like there's hundreds of monks
Yeah.
that are like Fahai's buddies.
Right.
So in order for her to go in there,
She's got to fight them all.
she's got to fight them all,
Right.
right? So at that point, Whitesnake says, all right, enough of this, and she declares war against Fahai.
Okay.
White and Green Snake asked the Eastern Dragon, I think this would be a sea dragon, but it's the Eastern Dragon, and the Eastern Dragon says, yeah, I'll help you, and sends them an army of sea goblins.
Okay.
Didn't look up what sea goblins are. Don't want to know,
Yeah.
because who knows what they look like,
Yeah.
but I'm sure they're horrible.
Bunch of little mermaids or something.
Something, yeah.
Okay.
Well, sea goblins, that's
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
self-explanatory.
Yeah.
So anyway, armed with this army of sea goblins, White Snake and Green Snake used their tremendous magical powers and flood the temple, thereby allowing all the sea goblins to go in there and start wiping out all the monks, right?
So they could swim in there.
Yes, but even with all of that, Fahai apparently beseeches the heavens, and he manages to defeat White Snake. So the two sisters, Green and White Snake, escape by floating away on this lotus petal. I'm not sure how that... maybe they can change their size. They turned really small and
maybe.
floated away on this petal. Basically, they escaped without dying.
Yeah.
So soon after floating away and escaping this war, this battle, they realized the reason White Snake was not fighting to her maximum potential is because she was pregnant.
Oh, wow.
Pregnant with baby Shu. Little Shu.
So we're going to have a white snake shoe.
Yes. So eventually, Shu managed to escape the temple and found White Snake. Although not human, he decided to love her anyway. And, his child or whatever.
Yeah.
But here comes Monk Fahai again. He can't let him go, man.
What's going on with this monk?
Just leave him alone, buddy.
Yeah.
What's the problem?
He's okay with her to be non-human.
He knows she's a snake.
He wants, yeah.
He still loves her.
He wants some snake love.
Why don't you back off there, buddy?
Yeah, back off.
You know what I'm saying? Get a life.
Yeah, go
But
get
here
your
he
own
comes.
snake.
Fahai captures White Snake and imprisons her under the Laifing Pagoda for centuries after she gave birth to her son. And that's basically how the story ends. She basically was captured. And of course, Shu, being mortal, he dies because
Yeah.
she's under there for centuries. So Yeah, and that's the story of the
Yeah,
white
that's
snake.
a happy story, too. But what does this have to do with the wall, though?
Well, because she met him at the wall.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, anyway, this is just myths and
Yeah,
legends
yeah.
that are associated with the wall.
I got so into the story that I forgot about what we were talking about.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a good one.
Okay, now the next one. This is called the Legend of the Zhuayongguan Tower. And if I mispronounce that and you speak fluent Chinese, please forgive me. I don't speak fluent Chinese, so I'm going to screw up all of these pronunciations. I apologize in advance. But this is we'll just say the Legend of the Tower. How
There
about
you go.
that?
Yeah.
We'll make it easy.
Yeah.
And this legend is actually based on some truth.
Okay.
You were actually there when we were watching the documentary.
Oh,
on it,
yeah,
but
yeah,
I
yeah.
actually did more research on
I
it.
remember this one.
This tells the story of a workman. He was just a workman. Mm-hmm. And his name was Yi Kaijan. And this was during the Ming Dynasty. This was around 1368 to 1644 AD. And this guy, this worker, this Yi Kaijan, we'll just call him Yi from now on, he was very proficient in arithmetic. So he calculated that it would take precisely 99,999 bricks to finish this pass and this tower. The supervisor, which is basically one of the slave drivers, is what it boils down to.
Yeah.
They call him a supervisor, but this is the dude that's like driving all the slaves to work on this wall. Or maybe it wasn't like that during the Ming Dynasty, I don't know. But you'd have to, because again, it was a life sentence even during the Ming Dynasty. So the supervisor didn't believe him and basically said, hey, if you are off by one brick, you and your buddies are not only, even if you finish your section of the wall, you're going to owe 3 more years of hard labor, even if you do what you're supposed to do, your quota or whatever, Because I guess they were just conscripted to do that section of the wall, which means that they probably weren't the life sentences that were in the past,
Right.
Because he's threatening them with 3 more years of hard labor.
Yeah.
So, of course, they're like sweating it, right? You'd be sweating.
Yeah.
But after the completion of the project, there was 1 brick left over. So here comes the supervisor. He's happy as a jaybird. He's like, oh man, I got him now,
Yeah.
But Yi was so smart and so well-spoken that he deliberated with this supervisor and convinced him that that 1 brick was placed there by a supernatural being to fix the wall. And that if that brick was moved, the entire tower would collapse.
Right.
So the brick was kept there and was never moved. And they didn't have to do their hard labor. They went home, apparently. He went home with all of his buddies.
Yeah.
That brick can still be found to this day.
Yes.
And you saw
Yeah,
it. You watched the documentary where the guy was... And it is on the Zhuangguan Pass. And it's trippy because it's like I don't know what you would call it.
It looks like it's misplaced.
Yeah, it's like a ledge around the tower.
Yeah. And then
you
it's
can
right
see
there.
one little brick sitting there.
Just sitting there.
And apparently, there has to be some kind of truth to this legend, because otherwise,
Nobody's touched it.
who's gonna not move that brick?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
I thought that was fascinating.
Yeah, me too.
So the next legend is called the Legend of the Beacon Tower. This happened sometime during the Western Zhao dynasty, which were right around the 11th century BC to 711 BC. King Yu had a queen named Bao Si, who was extremely beautiful. Mm-hmm. The king liked her very much. Now that description always, it kind of got to me. I'm like, what do they mean he liked her very much? Well, when you think about arranged marriages and, especially with the nobility, they didn't marry for love.
Yeah, no, they didn't.
They married for unions between different families and strengthening the empire.
To have strong heirs.
Right, to have strong heirs and money and riches and whatever power.
To build families and dynasties.
So them saying, oh, he liked her very much, that means he actually cared about her.
Yeah.
They actually got along. So he liked her a lot, this Bao Si, but she never smiled. Now, something's wrong with Bao Si, because apparently an official gave the suggestion that alighting the beacon, which was like a signal, like an alarm signal.
Yeah, like a war signal.
And causing everybody to panic because they would think they were under attack.
Yeah.
this official told the king that if you do that, it might make her smile. So something's wrong with her, man.
Yes.
But anyway, he liked the idea of the king, and he orders that this beacon is lit. So, of course, all the subjects in the area are fooled. All the soldiers are, scrambling to get their weapons.
Everybody's in chaos.
Yeah,
the
people are running around with their hair on fire because they think they're under attack.
Right.
And apparently, Bao Si smiles at all of this chaos and mayhem.
She's evil.
Right. She's a whack job. So, apparently, according to this legend, is later, when enemies actually did invade, the king ordered the beacon to be lit, and because the soldiers and the subjects had already been fooled once, they thought it was a prank. Kind of like the boy who cried wolf scenario. Yeah. And they didn't come rushing as fast as they should have.
Yeah.
And not only was that section of the wall captured and overrun by the enemy, but King Yu was killed.
That's what he gets.
And the Western Zhao dynasty came to an end.
Wow.
Yes.
Another good fairy tale.
Just to make a whack job smile. Can you imagine?
Yeah.
Another happy ending. Okay, so this one, I think this one's also historical. This legend.
Okay.
It's called the Metal Soup section of the Great Wall. And I believe this is called it's about 60 kilometers north of downtown Beijing to this day. And there's a famous section of the Great Wall called Huanghuai Cheng, which means the Yellow Flower Fortress. Apparently it was called the Yellow Flower Fortress because during the summer, the whole area would be covered in beautiful yellow flowers.
Oh, okay.
So the story was behind the building of this section of the wall, which is the Huanghuai Cheng Great Wall. The yellow flower wall. The construction began in 1575 AD during the Ming Dynasty, and there was a General Kai or Sai Kai, Chai Kai. Anyway, Kai. We'll just call him Kai.
Yeah.
General Kai was in charge of the entire works. Actually, I think it would be General Chai because the surname is first in the Chinese. Well, anyway, we'll call him General Kai. He was in charge of building the entire section of this wall. Well, he went to report that he had finished his section of the wall and was immediately executed. The emperor just put him to death. Yeah, which is not a real good way to run a empire, is it? Because apparently some jealous ministers had fed the emperor false information about this section of the wall and said that this General Kai spent way too much money. And it was poorly constructed, right? So the emperor was so unhappy with these false reports that he ordered General Kai's immediate execution. Wow. So later the emperor sent a trusted aide to check Kai's section of the wall. Well, you figure he would have done that before executing him,
Yeah.
Hindsight is 20/20.
Yeah.
But the aide came back and reported to the emperor that Huanghuai Cheng Great Wall was solid and was of the finest workmanship. So, of course, there's the emperor with egg on his face.
Yeah, exactly.
Feeling like a big idiot, basically, and rightfully so.
Yeah.
So he was sorry for his hasty decision in putting, Kai to death.
Right.
So Emperor Wan Li sent people to build a massive tomb and a memorial in memory and basically apology to this murdered, executed poor General
Sorry
Kai.
for killing you.
Yeah, who actually did a really good job.
Yeah.
And
thanks for the wall, but sorry for killing you.
yeah. So he had two characters basically carved into that section of the wall, which was Jin Tang, which means metal soup. And I guess another meaning of Jin Tang is solid and firm.
Oh, okay.
So he had it carved on a huge rock that was right below the wall, facing it, showing that section, General Kai's section of the wall, was solid and firm. So to this day, that section of the wall is still referred to as Jin Tang Wall, which is a trip.
Yeah.
So,
That's interesting.
Yeah. Again, it would have been nice for the emperor not to have killed him.
Yeah, to send some people out. I mean, put him in jail or something.
What? He's not doing a good job. Kill him.
Yeah, off with his head.
Off with his head, yeah.
That's crazy.
And there has to be, I didn't look up whether the the rock still exists.
Right.
You know, I mean, we're talking, what, 1575? I mean, that's what?
Yeah.
Almost 600 years ago.
Yeah.
So,
You know what I was fascinated about the Great Wall is how it started. Like, it started from the beginning of the ocean. Remember where they showed us on that documentary, and then it ended right into the desert. And
Yeah.
it was amazing how different the construction was. Yeah, and just how the area changed. You know, the terrain changed.
just where it was, some of the areas are so remote.
Yeah.
It's just insane.
Yeah, I remember that church.
Yeah.
The church, the big
the
Catholic
Christian
church. Yeah,
yeah.
the Christian church.
You said you were going to do research
Yeah,
on
that
that
church.
for the show.
That church was very fascinating.
And you never did.
I know.
So,
My bad.
You're
Sorry,
fired.
everybody.
You're fired.
I'm fired, everybody. It was nice knowing you. Thank you.
But that's pretty much it, baby.
Is it? Okay.
That's pretty much it for the show.
That
Because,
was interesting.
yeah. I think it's, I don't think enough people, well, let's get into conclusions,
Okay.
you know. So I'm not going to do the in conclusion thing because
Yeah.
there's really not any
There's not a
conclusions to be
conclusion.
done.
No.
But so we'll just give our closing statements.
Yeah.
Basically, I wanted to do this show because I've always been fascinated by the Great Wall. And again, I thought it was just one wall.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, that was only a couple thousand miles long,
Yeah.
which in itself is an achievement. You
Correct.
know, I didn't know it was 13,000 miles.
Yes.
And an absolute massive network. And actually...
And went out in like spiderweb ways. And,
Yeah,
And then
and-
there's that straight part.
And ran parallel with the Silk Road.
Yes. Yes.
And then you see the straight sections and stuff and how they're way up on cliffs. And it's just,
Yeah.
it's crazy. Getting all those materials. It really was a phenomenal feat.
Yeah.
It really was. And I wanted to do the show on that because it had always fascinated me. And I hadn't realized that most of the wall was in disrepair.
Yeah. Didn't know that either.
I thought it still looked all beautiful and shining
Yeah.
like you see in all the pictures where the tourists go.
Yeah.
I didn't know there was like trees growing out of sections and entire sections were
broken
and
Yeah.
you know the ramparts were all under weeds and grasses were growing on top of the wall and everything. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So that's why I decided to do the show. And I thought it was pretty
Yeah, it's
pretty
good.
interesting.
Yeah, it's good.
So what do you think?
It was good. I liked it. I mean, I did, like I said, I didn't know much about the Great Wall, and when Victor decided to use this topic, I was like, well, what are we going to talk about? But it was good. It was
But
really
even
good.
the legends and myths were interesting.
Yeah, the
I
legends
thought.
and myths were very, very good. I liked them.
And
You know,
you know how I believe.
no fairy tales.
You know how I believe. I believe that every myth and legend, regardless of how outlandish it might seem, I believe it has to be based on some type of truth.
Yeah, yeah.
And however remotely, I believe it has to be based on some type of
Yeah.
truth. That's just what I believe. So who knows?
Yeah.
When if you actually, and I'm sure there's probably Chinese historians that have done research on this.
Oh, I'm
I just
sure.
didn't find the links.
Yeah.
Because during my cursory research, because again, I'm not a professional
Yeah,
podcaster.
we are not professionals.
So anyway, thank you for listening. If you can support us, and I wanted to discuss this, if you can give us any kind of ratings or reviews, you want to do that because that's what's going to help the search algorithms bring our show to the top of the list. Because I was doing a search on iHeartRadio,
Yeah,
and even though I typed in almost our entire name, it didn't pop up. Every other show popped up that had nothing to do with ours, and that's because they're higher rated
Right.
and more listened to shows than
Right.
ours. So you basically have to search high and low to find our show because
Right.
we don't have that algorithm.
yeah,
So if you're of the mindset that, hey, I want to help the show out, but I don't want to send them money, and we know your time is precious, but just take the time, please. Give us a good review.
yes.
It doesn't have to be, you don't have to write a paragraph.
Yes.
Just, hey, like the show.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
And put good, thumbs
Yeah.
up, whatever. And
Or
it,
go on our Facebook page and like us.
yes,
Yeah.
that helps too. But
That helps.
mostly for the whatever,
Yeah, whatever.
wherever you're getting the podcast, that's most of
Yeah.
what's going to help. So just wanted to put that out there.
Yes.
Anyway, and again, if you want to send us, because we're going to do another Storytime show here pretty soon, and if you want to send us your story, and it's too long to type out in an email, on your phone, get a free digital recording app, record your story on that app, and just email it to us that way. And then we'll either play it in its entirety on the show, or we'll tell it in our own words if you want to remain anonymous.
Yep. Just check us out on Facebook and like us and review us. Have a good night. Thank you for listening. Bye.